Kept my family fed with a mule and a plow. I'm a whisper in the wind through the pine trees now. And my bloodline, it bled on this ground. Soon we all find that's where we're from. And Father Time, don't leave anyone out. When you pass on, what you gonna pass down? I'm Junior MacArthur and I joined my old man by way of a bullet and a beheaded man. Left behind my woman and my boy named Jones. Never got to meet him, but he's carrying the norm. My bloodlines, they bled on this ground. Soon we'll all find that's where we're from. And Father Time, don't leave anyone out. When you pass on, what you gonna pass down? I'm Jones MacArthur and I tried like hell to teach my son why a man don't sell. But he came home from college seeing dollar signs. Didn't want to go to work, just wanted me to die. I'm Hunter MacArthur and the deal looks good. In 18 months, this'll be a neighborhood. I got $1 million line I can sign my name on. But there's a whisper in the pines that's telling me don't say my blood.